Camera's rolling.
Hello, I'm Tyler Grace, and this is my presentation on the history of animation. I'll start with the definition. The definition of animation comes from the Latin word animato, which means the act of bringing to life. So ultimately, it was defined as the rapid motion of imagery. So the earliest examples of something like that would be cave drawings thousands of years ago, where people and animals were drawn on with extra limbs, like sort of like partially extra limbs now, to give the impression that they are moving. So obviously an example would be like that. Of course, for actual inventions themselves, we had mostly just simple drawings. Animation back then was mostly design. There's an earliest example would be a bowl that was discovered over 5,000 years ago, and it had drawings all around the edge of the bowl. So if you turned the bowl something like that, it looked like the characters were moving. And of course, the Egyptian murals and hieroglyphics back over 4,000 years. Obviously, this one is of wrestling and the stages of wrestlers. So probably in the some more examples of early inventions would be the magic lantern, and that acted as probably one of the first projectors. The magic lantern was basically a device that had a lens, a candle, and then it had like a sort of a funnel, and like a kind of like a slit to put oil paintings, so you can have a sequence of oil paintings colored on, and then the candle lens would project it onto a wall. There's the Phenakistoscope, which was actually invented simultaneously by Joseph Nassau and Simon von Sapper. One was Belgian, one was Austrian, and they came up with a similar idea, which is basically a disc that was spanned with string, and it would have different stages of the characters. So this one would be two people dancing. And then there's this Zoetrope device, which was patented by William George Horner, which follows a similar principle to the Phenakistoscope, except it's a cylinder with drawings all around the rim. So you see from like just here, just like you have one slit open and just it spins, and then you can see the character in motion. Then there's the Phonotrope, which was in 1824, a Victorian era toy, which had two separate images on a disc with string, and if you spin the disc, it looks like the two images become one. So that one there is a vase and flowers. And the Phonotrope was also referenced in a few films. One film was referenced, and it was Prestige, where they're explaining which was the character, Michael Caine's character, was explaining how the Phonotrope gave a sort of persistence of vision, which meaning two images in one. And then of course after that was the flip book, which was just a sequence of images. You start from the bottom, flip it to the top, it looks and gives characters in motion again. Of course, in the 20th century, then cell animation became the most popular form of animation. Early origins would date back to the early 1900s, 1940s. For example, that would be Gertie the Dinosaur. All these animations were shot on a Wostrom camera, and then at first they didn't have layers. At first, it was just all drawn in one picture, one frame, background, foreground, everything. So it took a lot more to animate, but then they introduced layers like this picture, so you can keep the background and just draw different characters. All these cells were transparent, so it made it easier just to move frame by frame. So these hand-drawn. So at the beginning, these were hand-painted, and it was actually primarily a female job back in the 30s, because it was seen along the lines of elders just seen as for feminine work. So it became the most popular form of animation in the 20th century, and it evolved over the course of the century from hand-drawn to digital. And it was the main technique that was used by Disney Studios until the 1980s. Now, 3D animation follows similar principles to 2D animation, except the drawing is replaced by 3D modeling. But 3D animation itself actually dates back from the early 1940s, 50s, using experimentations. Early examples would be like wireframe images and stuff. But the first actual use of 3D wireframe imagery is actually from a live action film called Future Road, which shows a hand moving and then like a robot face kind of over a human body. So this is the very first example of 3D animation in the film. As you can see in the screen there, there's a hand kind of just opening and closing. This was designed, this is a wireframe, and then there was a mesh over it. They actually have a face as well. And there's another primary example. So for my 3D practitioner, I'm just going to talk about Pixar. Pixar actually started off as a computer division of Lucasfilm called the Graphics Group, and they developed devices and software for their own work. One particular piece of software that they created was the photorealistic renderman, which they still use in their films. The earliest Pixar are responsible for the earliest examples of fully CGI short films and character-developed shorts as well. One of the most popular would be Red's Dream, which is a good example. Pixar are also responsible for the first ever CGI feature, Toy Story, which was released in 1995. John Lasseter is the writer and director of most of these for the majority of Pixar films, and he's very much involved in most of their productions. But Pixar is now, it was bought out by Disney and is now a division of Disney Animation. This is just a trailer to Toy Story. So you can see everything in this is 3D, the characters, the background, everything is CGI. Another form of animation is rotoscoping. Its first uses were in the early 1900s, 1970s, which was due to the invention of the rotoscope by Max Fischer. So Max Fischer was the pioneer of rotoscoping. He created his own studio. So let me just on the right side there. So he basically established a studio, and he primarily focused on rotoscoping, the mix of live action and so he made a full series with Coco the Clown and everything, and he was also the first use of audio sync in his film, my old film, Kentucky Home with a Speaking Dog. I just want to talk about modern examples of rotoscoping. Skynet Barkley is probably one of the first feature-length rotoscope films, and as you can see here, with rotoscoping, although it's a stylistic choice, it can help make certain images more believable. So the character, everything here is animated, so are the more surreal designs. It makes everything more seamless. And same with Waltz and Bashir, it's a war film, but because like it's very graphic and stuff, because it's all rotoscope, it's all done together, it all looks more seamless. So rotoscoping is essentially the use of live action and then animating over it. That's my presentation. Thank you.